why don't we get into some football conversation? And it seems like Mr. JD is trying to find a number one wide receiver. It seems like his depth charts don't show a number one wide receiver with Corey Davis, Montgomery, Mims, Elijah Moore, and Braxton Berrios. They did add 2 really good tight ends. They're expecting a lot from Conklin and Usama. But to me, they need that number one guy. They need that outburst, that bursting guy that can beat you on the outside, but also could go inside and kill you in a slant play. And they don't have one. Now, Elijah Moore could be the guy, but he's still young and he's still a little wet behind the ears, and he has to stay healthy for a full season. They have been trying to land a top-end wide receiver. They failed about a week and a half ago on Tyreek Hill. They offered the 2 second rounds in the 3rd round to get Tyreek, and Tyreek didn't want to be here. Now you're hearing stories that they're trying to reach out to the Seattle Seahawks for DK Metcalf, which I don't want, by the way. And they offered supposedly the number 10 pick, which, by the way, they gave them for Jamal Adams. Now, if I were the Jets, I'm not trading that 10th pick for DK Metcalf. As good as he is and what he's done in his first 2 seasons as an NFL player, fantastic. He had Russell Wilson throwing him the ball. I don't know how good DK Metcalf is going to be in a big city. I don't know how Mr. Purpley Hair is going to go out there in MetLife Stadium in the freezing cold winters here in New York. Seattle, it's rainy. It is cold, but it's not like it is here in New York when it's freezing and it's snowing. I don't know if he's worth a first-round draft pick. Now, obviously, they didn't think Tyreek was, and Tyreek is a much better player than DK Metcalf. But now there are stories coming out that Deebo Samuel has dropped San Francisco on his social medias. What does this mean? Who knows? Maybe he's trying to make a statement that if San Francisco is not willing to pay him, trade him. Now, does he fit with the Jets? Absolutely. Mike LaFleur is there, wide receiver coach over there in San Francisco. He's running the same offense as Kyle Shanahan. He's watched Deebo Samuel grow right in front of his eyes as the wide receiver coach, which he knows him very, very well because he was coaching him. Is Deebo worth a first and a second? My answer would be yes. But will the Jets make that offer? Now, San Francisco, I don't know if they're going to do it, but they just gave up their future for the next 3 seasons for Lance. I like Trey Lance. I think he's the weakest out of all the quarterbacks in last year's draft class. Even I think Mills is going to be a better quarterback than Lance. That's just my opinion. But it would scare me if you're a San Francisco fan that Deebo Samuel is not happy. Stephon Diggs just got a big contract. Tyreek Hill just got a big contract. Devontae Adams just got a big contract. These are all top wide receivers. Deebo Samuel had 1,600 all-purpose yards last year. He was the best all-around wide receiver in football. He ran touchdowns. He caught touchdowns. He was sensational. If he wasn't the top 5 wide receiver, he was right there close to it. Because we forget about Cooper Kupp, who just got an extension as well.
And a record-setting year.
But right now, where the Jets are, they got to decide. Is it A.J. Brown, who is available, wants more money? He wants Tyreek Hill money. He wants Devontae Adams money because he believes he's as good as them. He would love to come to the Jets. Elijah Moore is there. It's his family. They're like brothers. But DK Metcalf also played for Ole Miss. He would fit like a glove over there with Elijah Moore as well. He knows Elijah Moore very well as well. It is going to be a very interesting next couple of weeks before the draft. Do the Jets, Speedy, make a trade for a wide receiver?
I think Deebo Samuel is the best fit for them. I know they'd have to trade more probably than if they were to trade for Brown. Not that I think Brown is a worse receiver. I think as a pure wide receiver, he's more skilled than Deebo Samuel. But Deebo Samuel also was carrying that offense really the first half of the season because they had all those injuries to the running backs. George Kittle got hurt in week 6. I think he missed until week 11 or something like that. And a lot of the other guys were not performing for them. And he really grew as a raw wide receiver too. And then he also has the rushing ability. You were talking about the all-purpose yards. He had 1,405 receiving yards, 365 rushing yards, and was essentially the 49ers' backup running back, which, if you look at the Jets right now, yes, Michael Carter had a very good rookie season, especially in the second half of the season, but the Niners' offense, the Kyle Shanahan offense, is predicated more on running back depth. And even just in general, the running back, the feature running back is being faded out. So why not have a receiver that could also serve that kind of role too? And we've also seen Elijah Moore do that too. So they want to have that kind of warranty where they could have guys line up all over the place. The Jets haven't had this kind of a creative type offense since I've started watching football, even though if they had receiving talent, with the free agent receivers they brought in, they never had it in a scheme way. So I think Deebo Samuel will be a great fit and absolutely worth that 10th pick and the second.
I don't know if Deebo Samuels is going to be available. Now, the question is San Francisco willing to trade Deebo Samuel? If they do, their season is over. They're not going to be able to compete in that division. Already a division that's practically has really upgraded. Bobby Wagner going to the LA Rams now. I love Von Miller. Von Miller had a great season last year, but Bobby Wagner could still be a top 3 linebacker in this league for the next 2 years, 3 years. Adding a guy like Bobby Wagner and a contract that they gave him, and by the way, Allen Robinson, this is still a high-flying defense and a high-flying offense. I expect the Rams to be right where they were last year with the Matthew Stafford if he stays healthy. So that division is still very much stacked, and we don't know what Seattle's going to do when it comes to the quarterback play, but who's to say Baker Mayfield doesn't go over there? Mm-hmm. And if Baker goes over there, you have DK Metcalf, you have Tyler Lockett. That's a pretty good offense with the running game that they have over there with Carson, who was out practically the season last year.
San Francisco is going to have to do a couple things in order to make a Deebo Samuel contract possible. D Ford, $7 million, has already mentioned that he wants to be traded anyway, so they'll definitely move that. Jimmy Ward's another bad contract too, making $13 million for a safety that's average at best. And the other one that's possibly a movable guy is a pass rusher in Samson Ebukam, 8.25 for a depth pass rusher. So those look like the 3 moves. And we've heard Jimmy Garoppolo too being dangled around, but I think if he was going to get traded, he would have gotten traded already.
He's not getting traded. Trey Lance is not ready to be a starter. I don't care what Kyle Shanahan has said, that he believes that Trey Lance will take over this year. I don't believe it.
Yeah, so I think the Niners will try to shed those 3 contracts in order to get Deebo Samuel the money he wants. I agree with you. I think they'll end up paying him eventually. He's just too good of a fit. He's too valuable to that offense with the way it's built on the versatility, because the Niners are not like the conventional offense that's winning in today's league. When you look at a team like the Rams, you look at a team like the Bengals that are more warranted on the receivers, the teams that are in the Super Bowl, the Chargers now with the receiving depth they have, the Broncos now bringing in Russell Wilson. Like, they're more oriented on the 3 receiver sets type thing. The Niners are kind of the opposite. They're predicated on George Kittle. They're predicated on the versatile running game that they have, and it's a little different. So Deebo Samuel is just too valuable of a weapon for them to lose. So I agree with you. I think they still keep him, but if they somehow can't, the Jets should be knocking on the door.
Is Daniel Jones the guy? That's going to be the question moving into the season. They're definitely going to make their offensive line a little bit stronger in the draft. I expect their first pick in the first round at number 5, I expect it to be an offensive lineman. But if I were the Giants, both those picks should be offensive linemen. They need to completely build that offensive line, because if they want Daniel Jones to succeed, they got to do more than Thomas over there on the left side. If you add Cross and Ekwonu, you add to that offensive line, you put Ekwonu at the guard position and Cross at the right tackle position, that could solidify your offensive line for many, many years. Now, I know they need a pass rusher, so you draft the pass rusher in the second round, which this draft is still stacked with pass rushers and linebackers that can get to the quarterback. I think that that's where the Giants should go at 5 and 7. But are they going to do that? No, I expect them to go after a pass rusher as well in the top 10. So it's going to be very interesting. But bringing in Tyrod Taylor, that tells you one thing, that Daniel Jones is going to have a short leash. And if Daniel Jones doesn't play well in the first 3 or 4 games, especially the way the games are lined up, how the Giants could win, as easy as this schedule is going to be this year, the Giants could win 10 games with the schedule they're set up to be. Now, are they a talented team? No. But if Saquon Barkley is still there and he is 100% healthy, and this offensive line could actually block, this offensive game with Dable running this offense could be a totally different offense than it was last year.
Yeah, Daniel Jones has definitely earned that 4th year, at least as a tryout type thing in that offensive scheme, because Daniel Jones was far from the problem last year. They had all those injuries. Their receivers were awful, dropping passes. Kadarius Toney was hurt for much of the season. Offensive line was awful besides Thomas. So, yeah, Daniel Jones definitely deserves that chance. And again, based on the true value of the 5th and the 7th pick, and even their early 2nd round pick, there's really not a quarterback that I would want with any of those picks. The Giants have to build up in other areas. Offensive line, defensive line, even some more receiving depth. If somebody falls out of the 2nd round, it doesn't hurt, because, again, Kenny Galladay's contract is just god-awful, and the other guys really haven't shown anything in terms of development. Toney, again, he's there. You got to trust them. Hopefully the Brian Dable offense could use him in a different way that could make him worth the 1st-round pick from last year, too. But
I like Kadarius Toney. And of all the wide receivers they have,
whether they do 2 offensive linemen or an offensive lineman and a pass rusher, I'm fine with either scenario. The Giants could also trade back with the 7th pick, too, because a scenario I wanted after the Combine was Ojabo Deebo at that 7th pick after the combine he had, but now he tore his Achilles at his pro day too, so he's going to fall out of the first round.
You can get him in the second round.
Yeah, I would not mind them getting in the second round because the Giants need all the pass rush help they can get too. But that could open the door for another guy. Trayvon Walker is a guy that's been rising up draft boards. I personally am a little skeptical with him comparatively for what his value is. Karl Loftus, we've mentioned a lot too, is another guy. Doubling up on 2 offensive linemen doesn't hurt either. Maybe it's a scenario of Aquanu or Cross with Linderbaum, or a scenario where they trade back and get one of the guards. So there's many options the Giants could do that are all good, but they have to focus in the trenches. And then Saquon Barkley, you mentioned, they might keep him, we'll see, but if they trade him, they could get some extra draft picks with that too, and then draft some running back depth later, or trust the veterans that they have.